Mr. Aarts, thank you. First question, how has the Saudi monarchy been able to avoid the same fate that befell other Middle Eastern regimes during the so-called Arab Spring?
Well, first and foremost, one should remark that the Saudi regime was so clever to learn from, as they see it, the mistakes that have been made in Saudi Arabia and Tunisia and Libya, and nowadays in Syria. So they try to avoid the mistakes that were done by those regimes. That's a very general remark. More specifically, one should refer to the situation that the Saudi regime has ample money to buy off its opposition, if there is any opposition. And that has been done very cleverly when the Saudi King Abdullah, last year spent $130 billion to buy off his critiques, and to a large extent that worked. So these are two factors, and there are of course many more.
The U.S. leaned heavily on Egypt and even intervened in Libya following their use of violence on their own people. How has the Saudi government avoided that same Western pressure following their crackdown on the protests in the eastern provinces?
Yeah. Well, Western pressure is almost absent when it comes to Saudi Arabia, and there are two main arguments for that. And these arguments are the cornerstones, one should say, or one can say, of the relationship, the special relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States of America. That is, of course, energy. The United States depends not so much on Saudi oil now, but it will depend on Saudi oil more in the future. Not in the near future, but a bit further on. And more important when it comes to energy is that Saudi Arabia is the world's swing producer. So it can regulate the oil market, which is very much to the benefit of oil importers, like the United States itself and others. And then the second main factor is, of course, security. The umbrella that the United States is giving to the Saudi regime is hugely important. And I speculate that that will not change in the near future. I don't see that, let's say, China will be a substitute. That will not happen. So for the coming years to come, this so-called special relationship, which is a little bit less special since 9/11, of course, but it's still a very strong bond between the two.
Perhaps in the long to medium term, what kind of factors could coalesce to allow for the possibility of regime change in Saudi Arabia? And how likely do you think that to be?
Well, as I argue, is that in the near future there is no way of thinking that regime change is near, because the House of Saud is very well entrenched and has a lot of funds available. But things might change a bit further on when we look into the future. Because the Saudi citizens use so much oil, first, and second, so much Saudi oil is being used for producing electricity that less oil is left for export. And if Saudi Arabia is not able to produce more oil, and there is no indication, if we believe the figures, that it is capable of producing more oil, in the future it will have less oil available to export, which means that it has less oil income, which means that it has less funds available to buy off the opposition, to buy the loyalty of its population. So that might be somewhere in a more distant future, might be a turning point. For the near future, I don't see any indication, but of course it always can happen. You know, when the Arab Spring happened, nobody had foreseen it. So maybe as we speak, a coup within the royal family is taking place. One cannot foresee that.